Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Psych-Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about the Netflix documentary Black Barbie. This is a film by a woman named Legeria Davis. And the impetus for it was that her aunt worked in the Mattel toy factory in Texas. And she was the person who suggested to somebody, as the lore goes, that, maybe you should make a Black Barbie.
Mm-hmm.
So it starts from there. I'm going to read a quick synopsis from the film, the official synopsis of the film. Okay, Black Barbie celebrates the momentous impact 3 Black women at Mattel had on the evolution of the Barbie brand as we know it. Through these charismatic insiders' stories, the documentary tells the story of how the first Black Barbie came to be in 1980, examining the importance of representation and how dolls can be crucial to the formation of identity and imagination. Love her or hate her, almost everyone has a Barbie story. For filmmaker Legeria Davis, it all started with her 83-year-old Aunt Beulah May, and seemingly simple question, why not make a Barbie that looks like me? Black Barbie is a personal exploration that tells a richly archival, thought-provoking story that gives voice to the insights and experiences of Beulah May Mitchell, who spent 45 years working at Mattel. Upon Mattel's 1980 release of Black Barbie, the film turns to the intergenerational impact the doll had, discussing how the absence of Black images in the social mirror left Black girls with little other than white subjects for self-reflection and self-projection. Beulah May Mitchell and other Black women in the film talk about their own complex, varied experience of not seeing themselves represented and how Black Barbie's transformative arrival affected them personally.
All right. So let's talk about this high level because I was excited for this documentary, and I will be honest, it's only an hour and a half, but it felt like it was much longer. Mm-hmm. Which is not a good thing. And to me, it felt very disjointed. Like she was trying to tell a lot of stories at once. And, I think that I'm trying to think about the sorority one that we did. What was that called? Bama Rush, where that filmmaker put herself in the story and it kind of skewed it a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing. I understand, like, this is her story. This is her aunt. This is what's happening. But that it's not a Roger and Moore thing, Roger and me thing. It's not like, she wasn't the star of the film and we're watching her go through this progression. The documentary sometimes is this like first person account. And then other times it feels more like a documentary. And then the last third of it was like watching a social science documentary. Mm-hmm. It felt very jarring to me. Like that was me.
Yeah, it was, I felt it was overwhelming because there were just so many people.
Yes, she got a lot of people.
Like one person after another person after another person. It's like, first she kind of introduces her aunt, but then here comes Maxine Waters, and she's talking about, her first experience with a Barbie. And then we go back and we are introduced to some other character. And then there's Shonda Rhimes,
who's one of the producers. Shonda Land is one of the production companies. Yeah, there's 4 production companies part of this.
It's a lot of people coming at you, and they're just giving these short little bursts. And then we're moving on to something else. And then we might come back to this later. Mm-hmm. And then we go on to something else. And it was just like, I'm trying to take notes and I'm like, I don't know what to focus on.
Yeah.
I don't know where this is going.
I don't think the filmmaker had one thesis that she wanted to tell. And part of it was it took her 14 years to
to get funding,
to get it all together and to release it, which is not unheard of. This is like how long these kinds of documentary films they take, but it does feel like during that time, a lot happened. I mean, from she started, where's the notes that we got? This was 13 years. So she started in 2010 when we had a Black president. And
remember then?
Yeah. And then we went through like those years and then we get to 2020 and what's going on there. And so I do give her some, the world went through a lot, which I can imagine as a filmmaker, maybe you are changing your thought or how you see this documentary or what you want to say. I can see how over that time frame that you would change your thoughts, like things would evolve. But it almost kind of feels like at the end, it was like, well, I'm going to take every thought I've had for the last 13 years about this particular subject and put it into this documentary. And she got some really good, she got Shonda Rhimes, Misty Copeland. She got
Gabbard Sidibe.
Yes. And then she got she got a lot of firsts. She got the first, the first female fencer who wears a hijab.
Right. The Olympian.
The Miss, Miss California, Miss Black Texas or Miss Black California from 2005. To the point where I just stopped writing down names because it was hard to keep, it was hard to keep track of everybody that she was talking to, but she got a lot of well-known people. And then she also got scholars and writers and this person from this cultural center and this person from this center and all that, which is great. But usually documentaries, I think the successful ones will pick like, okay, who's our main person? Who's the voice of authority? And having one voice of authority, having more two, like here's a voice of authority. Maybe there's an opposing view, but okay, that's where these are. It just kind of feels like people just wanted to be in this. And she said, yes. Oh, you want to be there? Great.
Yeah. Because it's a big topic. It's an important topic. And so, I think these women were honored to be part of it. But it just was so hard. There was just no story or through line or just kind of all over the place.
Because I think one of the through lines is that the Legeria that she moves into in 2011, she moves to LA. She's a filmmaker and she decides she stays with her aunt, Beulah May. And Beulah May, who had worked at Mattel, loved dolls. And she was staying in this room full of dolls. And I think this is where it all sort of started, which is she, the filmmaker never felt very connected to Barbie or to dolls in general, didn't like them. But her aunt did. And so, probably started asking her questions about like, well, why do you like these dolls? And and so there's that main storyline. And I think that if that's a great storyline. And that's what that synopsis describes. Because what the synopsis is telling us is the story is about Beulah May and about, what's the woman's name? I will find it. Who was the first Black designer who designed the first Black Barbie. Her name's Kitty Black. And then Kitty Black had kind of a protege, Stacy. And so those are the three women that they're talking about. Beulah, I guess, was the first to say, we need a Black Barbie. And then Kitty comes in and says, I can, I'm here, I can design this. Let me show you. And then Stacy takes what Kitty started and kept it going.
Yeah. So before that, so Barbie, I think the first Barbie came out like 65 years ago or something, or maybe longer.
It came out, I will tell you.
I feel like it's been more than that. But anyway, they had
1959.
Okay. They had black dolls. Mattel made black dolls, but they always had another name. And those started coming out like in the 60s. They were called Friends of Barbie. So there was one, this in 1967, there was a friend of Barbie named Francine. I think it was Francine. And then Chrissy came out in 1968. And that was Barbie's babysitter / best friend.
Yeah.
Why does Barbie need a babysitter?
Yeah. Isn't she an adult? She has a dream house.
Exactly. She's got a Corvette. I don't know. And so, they just kind of made the doll darker. You know what I mean? They didn't change the features. So the facial features and the hair and everything is the same. They just made it darker. And then they made a Julia doll after the character played by Diane Carroll. And then there was Kara and Christy. And Shonda Rhimes talks about how those two dolls, they were Barbie to her. That's what Barbie was to her. But they were not Barbie.
Yeah.
And she said she didn't even understand that. She found that out later. It was like, it was, I just feel like, it was just starting to happen to have this representation, and people were just happy to have it.
Yeah.
And then, later got taken to the next level.
But there was one thing that they did point out many times, which is true, which is, Barbie was created in 1959. I guess apparently it was like 61 when Beulah said to Ruth Handler, one of the owners, you should make a Black Barbie. And then what was it? That Kitty Black was hired in 1976. But the first Black Barbie debuted, I believe, in 1980.
Yeah. Why did that take so long?
Yeah. So it took 20 some odd years from Beulah suggesting it to it actually coming to fruition. And in between that, there was another company that had started called Shindea Toy Company, where I guess they were, this was in 1963, these two men, Lou Smith and Robert Hall, they wanted to create more jobs and opportunities for Black people to own businesses, I think, and so what it's called is Operation Bootstrap. And so they helped fund and create a bunch of businesses. And so I guess they got a loan of $200,000. And at that time, that's a lot of money from Mattel to build this business. And so they were the leading, manufacturer.
And they started, they were the first to start to manufacture Black dolls that looked like Black people, that had
and other and brown and Asian and other ethnicities. Yeah. Yeah. And making more accurate features. So they were the largest producers of Black dolls in the 70s and 80s, but it closed down in 1983 because my guess is that it sounds like Mattel and all the big toy companies they got into that market.
Yeah. Well, and so the first official Black Barbie that was designed by this woman, Kitty, she modeled the doll after Diana Ross. And of course, the doll was very fashionable, had the cute hairdo, and it was a beautiful doll, but it was so different from Barbie. Because the original Barbie to me is just, she's just eternally kind of like a young, I don't know how old Barbie is supposed to look like, or, you know what I mean? Sort of like a late teens, early 20s ish kind of age. And she just seems kind of younger. And that doll, the Diana Ross doll, to me seemed so much older. And I would just think as like a younger girl. And that's the thing, that girls who play with Barbies, they're not even teens, they're very young.
Yeah.
So I just thought, I don't know if I would connect with that doll, because it's not a very youthful, it's a beautiful doll, but it's not a youthful doll. You know what?
I understand what you're saying, because Kitty was very intentional. She wanted to make, she had short hair, which is
natural hair.
Short, natural hair that then, that she wore bold colors. It's really bright dress. And I guess apparently the the white Barbies they always had these kind of like giant ball gown. And what Black Barbie was wearing was this like much hipper, much, but more form-fitting dress with like a big slit up the side and like sexy,
Yeah.
So I guess you're right that it is a little bit more provocative and a little bit older. Something that someone, not a teen, would wear that, but someone, in their late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, because think about Barbie at that time. That was the Malibu Barbie, the sporty Barbie. That's always kind of been the Barbie brand, I thought. Barbie is a very active, sporty character.
Gal. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't want to diss the doll at all, but I don't know how it would connect with young girls who are 7, 8, 9, 10. What I mean, if you're 10 and still playing with Barbies, that's pretty old. I feel like Barbie is something that starts when you're 2 or 3, and goes to maybe 8, 9 tops.
Yeah. And I think that when we talk about Barbie, it's all of those, because I remember Layla had all the princesses.
Right.
She had all the princesses. And I think about like Belle and Beauty and Jasmine and Cinderella and all of that. And while those aren't Barbies, it felt like Barbies because they were that kind of doll with the plastic shoes and the outfits. And so, that's another piece of it too, is like this was another question of it, is like, what exactly is Barbie? What is it? And how do you think about it? How do people think about it? And, I want to go back to this whole other, there's another level of this, which I didn't know much about this experiment. There was a 1940 experiment done by Kenneth and Mamie Clark. They're two social scientists, researchers, and they did an experiment where they gave children of different colors, black children, brown children, white children, and they had these, and they showed them these dolls, and the dolls were exactly the same clothes. They both were wearing diapers, same everything. The only difference was one was white and one was brown. And they started asking the kids questions about these dolls and what they learned from this. And this is something that has been talked about a bunch in social science, which is that the majority of Black children associated positive characteristics of, beauty to the white dolls and negative characteristics of a beauty to the brown dolls. And, they asked these questions of like, then show me the doll that represents you, like asking these questions. And what they found from the research was that a tremendous amount of damage had been done by what they call by racial rejection.
Yeah, they had internalized racism, already, because they ask, this is called the Clark test, and they ask, I think this is still used, I think.
Well, they did a variation of it at the end of the film.
Yeah, but then they changed it slightly, because I think the original Clark test asked which doll is prettier. And I think they changed that to be like, which doll do you like better, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically they were saying that, the children were consistently picking the white doll as being prettier. And so they have already internalized racism and internalized this notion that, white is prettier than Black. It's really, this is really something when you look at it. And in fact, they said that they used this experiment as in the Brown versus Board of Education case. They cited this experiment and how when you segregate children, the damage that occurs and all that. So this is a very famous test. And I think that's the thing with the what these girls want. All they wanted was a doll that looked like them, that they could identify with. I don't know why we had to call it Barbie. You know what I mean? It's like, because then who was it, Mattel or a different manufacturer who had these dolls, the Shawnee, Asha,
I thought that was Mattel.
Okay. So then they took because I don't think that it seems like this was also a big marketing and merchandising failure on Mattel's part, because I don't think the Black Barbie was really catching on.
No. Oh,
because
okay.
it was I got that feeling because it was so one-dimensional.
Yeah, well, I thought it was popular, but one of the issues was that they showed us sort of the marketing at the time, and they asked for promo materials when Black Barbie was, debuted. Can you share some of the Mattel materials that they have? And apparently they didn't have any. So I think the thing is they made the doll, but didn't promote it.
Right.
But exactly. I think it was still, but I got the sense from hearing from Beulah and some other people that they were finding it and wanted it, that there was a desire for it.
Yeah, there was a desire, but it wasn't doing well because, like you said, it was not being marketed and promoted. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, or they just didn't know how to market it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But so they tried this other tactic where they came up with dolls that, again, are not called Barbie. They have their own distinct names, and they have different shades of skin tone.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so that's a little more realistic. But again, they're putting them in these, and then we come back with the designers, and the designers are a big part of this film, and they're very proud of their designs and their beautiful dresses and whatever. But again, not realistic for playing, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, it because it's interesting as we talk about, like, what is Barbie? So is it just the original figure? Is that Barbie? Is, in my mind, I always think about like Barbie dolls. And the Barbie is all of these dolls that all have that same kind of plastic type and with the clothes.
Same figure. That's another issue. They all have the same body.
Yes. Yes. But we saw from this that they were making variations, because we do see some naked Barbies, and those were different bodies for sure, that were far more diverse. I think the other thing is that the a big theme of this documentary was about representation and what you see, and that was the thing about the Shawnee dolls, were that those dolls represented success and beauty and possibility. And that's really, I don't know. That's how they saw.
That's
Barbie.
That's how Mattel. That's the thing. This is how Mattel sees it, and I really feel like Mattel struggled with how to talk about these dolls and how to market them. And they also talked about how so not all of the Barbies got a black doll, because if you go to Target or whatever, a lot of times you'll see, because you'll see, okay, there's tennis Barbie, and there's a white one, and then there's a black one, and they're identical, except the same outfit, same accessories, whatever. But not every doll that they manufactured had that corresponding doll, and not all the retailers choose to order them.
Yep.
And that's why when you go to Target, 95%, even here in Oakland, California, I go down to my Target and 95% of the Barbies are going to be white. So that's a whole nother issue, the supply and demand, or what the retailers think that they can, sell that they don't know, it's again, I keep going back to the marketing of all of this. I think it was just a big failure. So, I don't know.
Well, you talked to Layla, so I want to hear about your conversation with her.
So my daughter is Black, and I remember when she was growing up, she loved all kinds of dolls, the Disney princess dolls, Barbie dolls, anything. I think at one point, I counted, and she had about 75 dolls, and I think I stopped counting. I mean, it was ridiculous.
She loved those dolls.
It was ridiculous. And they were so cheap. Like, you could, you're at Target and it's like, can I have this $10 doll? And it's like, okay. And pretty soon you have 75 dolls.
Well, you know what's really expensive are the clothes.
Yeah.
Aren't the clothes kind of pricey? Well, and those goddamn shoes. Layla was always losing the shoes from those dolls, and then you would step on it and it would hurt. I remember like spending a lot of time looking for those shoes on the floor.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. We had bins and bins and bins of dolls, doll clothes. We had multiple dolls. And this is just a side note. This is a tricky thing Disney kept doing. They kept re-releasing the different Disney princess. Every year they'd have like one year it'd be Ariel, and all the merchandise would be Ariel. And then, then they would re-release it in a year or two, but the clothes were different. So they changed something slightly. And it's like, but you already have Ariel, but I don't have this Ariel with this dress. And you can only get this dress if you buy the whole doll. They don't really sell the clothes separately. When we were younger,
they did.
That was more of a thing where you would buy separately. By now, no, this is how they get you to buy a whole new doll and spend, twice as much. But anyway, I was always, when we would go to Target and look at these dolls, I would always say, well, what do you want to, what about the black doll? I'm like trying to promote this. And she was always like, no. She never wanted it. And one day I asked her, I said, why do you never want to choose the black doll? And she says, because that's not Barbie. And I was like, okay. And in fact, the girl the niece of the filmmaker who she interviews towards the end said the same thing. She said that, and they interviewed some other kids too, I think, but basically, they all said the same thing. That's not Barbie. They all said the real Barbie was the white blonde one, and all this in the stores and the commercials and whatever, that's what you see. And so you have all these kids who they're not thinking very nuanced. I think that they're just kids, and they're like, they see a commercial for Barbie and it's like, that's Barbie. Barbie is not this other person.
Psych Legal Pop will be back after these messages. So you feel like if Mattel had promoted it differently and did a huge ad campaign and had TV commercials, that the perception of it would be different, because it would be, this is Black Barbie, this is Black, like that association?
Maybe. I mean, clearly what they were doing wasn't working. So
yeah, I feel like the Mattel stuff with this is it. And again, I think we're back to that same issue with the filmmaker not kind of figuring out what lane she wanted to be in, which is, she's interviewing her aunt. This is how she got exposed to this. I think this is how she was able to get a lot of these Mattel people to come and maybe do the documentary that allowed to get the funding to get these other people to show up and so on and so forth. So, and her aunt is very proud of working at Mattel, very proud of the work that she did, and so she's very pro Mattel. And so there is definitely like this through line of not really wanting to criticize Mattel.
Yeah, true.
Because they're telling us the story of Beulah and then, the influence that she had. And then now we're on to Kitty and how Kitty influenced Stacy. And Stacy did the 30th anniversary of Black Barbie and did that anniversary doll in 2010. And then they show us like, and then what are we going to do for 2020? It's a white gay man designing it. But we're kind of like just brushing right by that of like, oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Another thing Layla talked about was, the media effect of it. Because, in all media, the pretty white girl is the norm. And, there were never any advertisements or movies for Black Barbie. Now, another component of this is that Barbie has a whole line of movies, there were DVDs, when she was young. But it's like Barbie in the Dancing Princesses, Barbie in the whatever castle. You remember
Yeah,
that?
no, because the thing is that I don't remember. We didn't have that when we were kids, and then I had a boy, and so when they started playing these Barbie movies, I'm like, what are these movies? I've never seen this before.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
a whole line of movies.
Barbie has dozens and dozens of movies.
She's a hardworking woman.
Yeah, and again, but there are no movies for Black Barbie, whatever that means.
Well, but they show us, right? One of the movies that they show us is this whole thing of like, there's Malibu Barbie and Malibu Barbie Roberts, and then she meets another Barbie Roberts
from Brooklyn,
and it's Black Barbie, and they talk.
That's very new.
Yeah,
that's in the past couple of years.
But they talked about how both of these characters were represented in the show, and it was very glaring that Barbie could be goofy and make mistakes and not be perfect and be less than. Like, apparently the storyline was that, like, Brooklyn was a really good musician and she could do all these things and dance and do all these things well, and Barbie was kind of a failure at it. But the end was this thing where she and Barbie tie for the win of whatever. I don't know the plot of the movie, but it was this idea of Brooklyn Barbie needs to be incredibly outstanding at everything to just get on an even par level with Barbie, white Barbie, who's flopping all over the place. I think that was the argument they were trying to make, which I think is, I agree, which is, why couldn't Malibu Barbie support Brooklyn Barbie? Do you know what I mean? Like, why couldn't it be about her being her friend and supporting her and supporting that this person has a lot more talented gifts?
Yeah.
Why couldn't she be the star?
I guess, but also, like, what? And also, that sounds really heavy for a for a kid's animated movie. I don't know.
Well, no, but I mean, not heavy in that sense. It was just like, why does one character have to excel in so many ways? Why can't the Barbie who can't dance very well, why does she need to be in the dance contest too?
Well, I think they were just trying to do this overall message that Black people have to work twice as hard just to be, seen on an equal level with white people. That's the overall message.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think that they knew that they were giving that message. Okay, now I'm backed out. Okay.
Well, I think it was intentional.
Oh, okay. I thought they didn't intend for that, but that's kind of what happened. Okay. That changes things. That does change things. Sorry. Then I see this differently now. Because I really thought that they were kind of didn't even realize what they were doing, which then leads us to this other thing that was done. Again, I didn't realize this, where they did these, the Barbie vlog to talk about big issues. I think that must have come out in like 2020, 2021, that they talk about that at the end. The Barbie vlog. Do you remember this?
No, I spaced out. By the end of this movie, I was just like, I don't know.
Yeah. So
what is going on?
Yeah. And that's the problem. So the third, she divides it into 3 chapters. And the third chapter is sort of like, where is Barbie going, or what's the state of the future? And this is where it becomes this, we meet this professor from Cal State Fullerton, Dr. Amira Safir. And so now she's like conducting, we see her talking about the original Clark experiment, and that they wanted to do a variation of that. And so we see, one of the MFT interns, like interviewing kids and asking these questions and getting their 2 cents about what they see and what they don't see. And that's what I felt like that was when the film kind of, like, the documentary went off the rails, when she just sort of changed the format. Do you know what I mean? It's like, now who's the narrator now? Like, who are we following? It's just, but we see sort of an updated version of this experiment, which I thought was very interesting. But it just felt really disjointed.
Yeah. I mean, they're jumping all over the place. And then we meet this guy who's the global head of DEI at Mattel.
Yeah.
And he was a terrible spokesperson.
He wasn't very good. He kind of was mansplaining, kind of talking like he was not good because, again, that's why I
don't
said
know what he was saying. Like,
I think that was the whole thing. I think that's what the filmmaker felt like she had to walk a very fine line with Mattel.
Yeah. If she wanted to get this interview, she couldn't be too critical. And then she let them sort of get away with saying whatever ridiculous thing he said.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what he said.
Well, and I think that, for Kitty Black and for Beulah and for Stacy, this is their careers. They're very proud of, what I mean? And it's a little bit like, I think for them, it meant something different. I think she was trying to do a lot. She was trying to the filmmaker was trying to, oh God, when you try to speak to everyone, you speak to no one. And I think that's a bit of what happened. She was trying to speak to everyone. And I personally think, like, if she had just done something on, if it was all about this representation of dolls and the Clark experiment, and then this woman who, Dr. Safir, she studies how Black kids feel about their Blackness. That's what she does at Cal State Fullerton. Like, if you brought someone like her on and these other experts on to talk about beauty and our culture and all of that, and then moving on to Black Barbie, and that needed to be very short of like how it all Beulah, how it all came to be. And then you can talk at the end, I guess, and put it all together of like what do people think about this? I don't know. I'm just trying to change this movie a little bit to make it make sense.
Trying to help it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's also, it felt so constrained in the sense that, we have to focus on this one, and this one doll that came out in 1980. And why aren't we talking about just, Barbie as a brand and dolls in general as a brand? Yes.
Having more diversity, not just in, racial and ethnic diversity, but body diversity and disability, ableism, all that kind of stuff. Like, why aren't we? I mean, this is like, okay, agreed. We all agree. We need to have. Okay, so why isn't it happening? It's like I would say, the American Girl dolls do a much better job. You can actually have a doll made specifically to look like you. You pick the hair color and the texture and the skin tone and even if you have glasses, you can put glasses on. They have a wheelchair. I remember Layla had the wheelchair. She loved that.
I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. She wanted the cast, the wheelchair, and the crutches. It's like, this is an accident-prone American Girl. So I don't know what that meant, but yeah, I mean, it's like Barbie still has the same measurements, and even when they tried to, make a curvier look for like the Shonda doll or whatever, it still is like very very thin. And I mean, I wish they would have talked more about that. That was interesting to me. And I don't know, I'm trying to say, what else did Layla say about this? She said that there was, she felt that, this was a good line. She said, talking about how, all girls apparently, black, white, whatever, Barbie is Barbie.
Yeah.
And she said, ultimately, Margot Robbie is still Barbie. That, and just reinforcing that is Barbie. And that's why I think they just had so much trouble trying to make it just a copycat.
Yeah.
They just should have made a whole new doll with a different name and just market it and do it like you did Barbie. but again, it's hard when you have such variation in skin tone and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
If you really truly want people to find a doll that looks just like them, and that would mean, putting out more versions of the doll, which apparently Mattel wasn't interested in doing. And I think that's a big part of it too. I think there's a lot of racism at work on Mattel's part, because they're going to do what's going to make them the most money.
Yes. And, again, the fact that we just kind of skated over, I don't know, that 40th anniversary doll thing. I mean, okay, we're just moving right along. I mean, this entire story is about these Black women who who came in and made a difference and represented themselves. And I would be a little annoyed if, okay, now this guy's running the department. Anywho, I think that, I think that there's so many layers to this, because did you see the Barbie movie?
No, I've never seen it.
It's really good. I have to say, it's really good. It's worth seeing for sure. And I think what made the Barbie movie very successful is they really kind of aimed on, it was very much about feminism. It was about just, how women are perceived, how we're seen, our place in the world. And they did it in this way of kind of, in a comedic way. They were able to kind of show how women have been sort of shoved into the world next to men. And that this Barbie universe, it was all about Barbie. Ken was nothing. And then, but when they went out into the real world, Ken was everything and she was nothing. And so that's why, I think that movie was really, that it did a really good job, because I think it kept that narrow focus. And I think that you're right. I mean, she could have made the whole documentary just as what would have happened if they had delivered this in a different way, but I think that Kitty could not talk to, the sense that I get, I don't know. I don't think Kitty could talk very openly about maybe what her experiences were truly like at Mattel and what she went through and maybe what was going on. And I think that if Mattel wasn't so involved in this, then I think, because a lot of the people that she interviewed were people that also had Barbies, Shonda Rhimes, Misty Copeland, like they had Barbies made for them.
Yeah. They're not going to diss Mattel or, they just made a doll in their image and it's iconic. Yeah.
So
you're right. It was really hard to be critical, I think, for the filmmaker and for anybody in the film. It was very hard to be critical. And, the bottom line is just that it was just asking, why can't we have dolls that look like us? And I think that there is a lot more diversity now, but it's still a long way to go. I mean, at the end of the movie,
we're at war with DEI right now, which is the silliest, stupid war I've ever.
Whatever that means. I know.
It means to be at war with DEI, but
well, because DEI is causing plane crashes and all kinds of stuff. It's
DEI takes a hold of things, and then planes they crash.
Yep.
But
there was an Asian girl towards the end who said, none of these Barbies look like me.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's, there's a long way to go. I mean,
I think that, I was going to say, so I will say for this filmmaker, I do feel for her, because it is interesting when you think about the time in which she started making this film. And we see throughout the documentary, this timeline. She keeps going and this was one thing that it was like, we're going forward, we're going back, we're going over here. Now what's happening?
Going so fast. It was like boom, 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 boom.
And then there was one section where it was like the Watts Rebellion. And then we're talking about that Operation Bootstrap. And I'm like, okay, was that the same year as Operation? What does the Watts Rebellion have to do with that?
Yeah.
It wasn't explained.
No. Or maybe she's just trying to focus where we are in time and what's happening. I don't know.
In the world, but I don't know. So anyway, we get this timeline. So since it is interesting if you think about how the documentary started in, 2011, or the idea of it started then, and where we were in the world and how we saw the world versus where we are today in 2023. Again, we've talked about this, that, after Obama got elected, it felt like the dawn of a new era, dawn of a new day. The world is changing, and
here we are.
And here we are. So I think that that's part of it too, is there's this like kind of hope, I mean, you in the thing, you see like Michelle Obama becomes the first Black, first lady. And then she, wears this, whatever, and they make a Michelle Obama doll and blah, blah, blah. Like we see these things on the timeline, and you can see like, yeah, how exciting. Isn't this great? And then wah, wah, wah. And now, I mean, and to watch it now, it feels even more like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, I know. It's really crazy to think about, and discouraging, and it's discouraging that we're still like, even having to talk about why we don't have representation in something as simple as a toy, a doll. Yeah. I mean, it's not hard, and there's demand out there for it. It's not. I mean, when you look at, allegedly our country's supposed to be getting, less and less white demographically. There's a market out there for, Asian dolls, Hispanic dolls,
tons of different kinds of dolls. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is Barbie Barbie so white? It's like, I can't believe they're still making these Barbie movies and shows, and I mean, it's yeah.
Well, I think that it will always, Barbie's never going to go away. It's always going to be here. And that was one thing, is I felt like there was no kind of message for the future. Like, what does this mean now?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know. Because the world is so topsy-turvy right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And, I would love listeners who have personal experience with this to let us know what you thought, because it's really hard for, two white ladies to sit here and fully understand this and to talk about it. And so I would love to get some, please, like,
if someone else watched it and your take on it, I would love to hear other people's perceptions, and what did I miss?
Yeah.
What am I not getting? I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe we just are, because we're clearly not getting it. If you've come this far and you've listened to it, we're kind of not getting it. And I would,
but I don't think this is all, I think that again, I think that I noticed when we were going through, we don't really look at reviews before we pick things. I mean, we might, because I don't want to read a lot about it before I start watching it, but I saw that there were some negative reviews. I think this is not entirely on us. This was a bit of a scattered documentary, but I think now that we've talked through it and I think more and more about it, it almost feels like it's as scattered as how we are right now. Because really, right, this is a huge topic that that you're trying to talk about in this one way. And that can be difficult, and that can be challenging, because everybody has different experiences and situations, and Barbie means something to everybody, and some people loved her and some people hated her. You know what I mean? So that's the part that's hard, is this is a huge topic to talk about,
because it's not just about the Barbie.
No,
this is about race, and this is about complicated a lot. It's complicated. So it was a big job to try to tell this story in a succinct way. And I mean, I'm glad that she made it, and bless her for trying and persevering for 13 years or whatever. I mean,
I learned a lot about
I did too.
Barbie, and about, it seemed like it's interesting because the Ruth and who's the guy, a handler. We don't hear much about the man.
Yeah.
Like, it really seemed to be Ruth's business. Elliot and Ruth Handler, who were the owners
Of
of Mattel.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I think Ruth Handler obviously was a pioneer within her world, because I don't think many women own these kinds of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that she was, like walking and asking questions and asking the employees, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Going to Europe, getting ideas, like all of that kind of stuff. She seemed to be the architect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Of all of it. So it was interesting, definitely. But there was just a lot of people, a lot of opinions, and a lot of things that, I know it's hard when you've spent all this time and energy interviewing people that you feel like, oh, I got to put, enough of that person out there. But documentary filmmakers do this where it's like, yeah, okay, we've now heard the same thing from 3 different people.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to do that.
Yeah, I think she was trying to honor all these people who took the time to sit down and talk to her, and she didn't want to cut anybody out. And, she had a lot of big names, and it was a lot. So yeah, if you want to give us feedback about this, you can email us at psychlegalpoppodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
We're also on Instagram and TikTok and Blue Sky, and also Facebook. And you can leave us a comment there, or message us there, and just check us out in general. And if you want more content from us, we do have a Patreon, where we do bonus episodes every week, and we do monthly additional bonuses for our $8 tier. And please, if you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe. Please give us a rating on Apple Podcasts if you have time. And what else?
That's it. Spread the word.
Spread the word of Psych Legal Pop. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Bye.